This podcast is brought to you by the IIEA, sharing ideas, shaping policy.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for your attendance. Even though it's a relatively nice summer's day, it's a little dark in here. So my name is Alex White, by the way. I'm Director General here at the Institute. Just excuse our appearance slightly, particularly the windows you'll see throughout the building that we're having replaced in order to ensure that we protect this lovely Georgian building at the heart of Dublin. We're doing some work in August. So that explains why the lights are on and the place looks like it's in the middle of winter. So excuse us for that, but welcome nevertheless to all of you, those of you who are attending here in person and those of you who are viewing us online. You're all equally welcome. We're particularly pleased this afternoon to welcome our distinguished guest, Hakan Fidan, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Türkiye. And the Minister has been generous to come to us this afternoon, to spend some time with us this afternoon, and what I'm sure is a very busy official schedule for him and his team here in Dublin. The Minister will speak to us for maybe 20 minutes or so. We won't quibble over 20, 25 minutes, whatever works for you, Minister, will be fine. And then we'll have a Q&A, we'll have some discussion at the audience. So as always, if you're viewing us online, you know how to ask a question or put in a comment. You'll see the facility there on your screen. If you're in the audience, it's easier because you just have to put up your hand and make sure that I see you, and then we'll get an opportunity to come to you. The presentation by the Minister and the discussion afterwards will all be on the record. So to introduce our distinguished guest, which is, as I said, my great pleasure as Director General here at the Institute to do so. Hakan Fidan has been Minister of Foreign Affairs since the presidential elections in his country in May of 2023. Prior to his current role, the Minister held critical positions in the state administration, in foreign policy and security domains. He served as the President of the Turkish Cooperation and Coordination Agency, Deputy Undersecretary responsible for foreign policy and security issues at the Prime Ministry, Board Member of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Undersecretary, Director of the National Intelligence Organization, and Special Representative of the President of Türkiye. Having graduated from the Turkish Military Academy and the Land Forces Language School, Minister Fidan pursued a significant part of his academic studies during his service in the Turkish Armed Forces. He holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Maryland, University College, and master's and doctoral degrees from the Department of International Relations at Bilkent University. So a most distinguished career thus far, and it's our great pleasure here at the Institute to welcome Minister Fidan to address you. The floor is yours, sir.
First of all, good afternoon. I wish to express my sincere gratitude to the Institute of International and European Affairs for this kind invitation. And I also thank Director General Alex White for his generous introduction and hospitality. Thank you again. We gather today at a time when our world is overwhelmed with multiple crises at once. Henry Kissinger once joked, "There can't be a crisis next week. My schedule is already full." That sentiment perfectly captures the current state of international system. We are up against cascading crises. Wars that destroy lives, humanitarian crises that shock our conscience, economic upheavals that test our resilience, global mistrust that fuels rivalries. But the greatest crisis is not on the battlefield or in the markets. It is a crisis of legitimacy. The rules that meant to maintain international peace and security have eroded. The conscience of the international community is being silenced. Transgressions have become rampant. Atrocities are carried out with complete disregard for international law. This reflects the same ancient mindset. The strong did what they could, and the weak suffered what they must. That was the world back then. It cannot be ours today. If nothing else, 2 world wars taught us a painful lesson. Power alone cannot sustain order. From their ashes emerged the United Nations Charter, the Geneva Conventions, and the principles of human rights. These are pillars of a system built to prohibit aggression and give voice to the vulnerable. You can even trace this progress in the language of international institutions. The Covenant of the League of Nations, pledged with high contradicting parties. Just 26 years later, by contrast, the Charter of the United Nations begins with "We, the peoples." That shift was not cosmetic. It signifies a transition from an order shaped in the chambers of a narrow elite to one that at least aspires to reflect the dignity and the agency of the peoples. Yet even that order is under strain today. Too often, principles are applied selectively. Those who are powerful disregard the rules when it suits them. Institutions meant to defend justice are paralyzed by vision. And this is precisely the crisis of legitimacy I am speaking of, not because the underlying ideals are insufficient, but because the gap between principle and practice is growing wider. Still, we must not lose sight of the greater arc of history. Humanity has already proven time and again that we can rise above the logic of brute force. Our task now is not to abandon the system, but to reform it, to make it fairer, more inclusive, and more faithfully applied. And this is the core tenet of our approach to the international system. As President Erdogan often emphasizes, a fairer world is possible. After all, the international system is not predetermined nor condemned to a perpetual state of nature. The order we live in is ultimately shaped by our choices, our principles, and our collective will. And Turkey, my country, plays an ever-increasing role in addressing all these challenges through its proactive and result-oriented foreign policy. Contributing to peace, stability, and prosperity around the world constitutes an important component of the vision that we call Century of Türkiye back home. In implementing this vision, we benefit from deep-rooted traditions of our diplomacy. We derive strength from several factors, including our geographic position, rich historical experience, robust institutions, strong human resources, and dynamic economy. We aim to contribute to regional and international security and stability while also shaping conditions for sustainable peace and development in our neighborhood and beyond. We employ complementary political, economic, humanitarian, and cultural tools. This is how we conduct a diplomacy that thinks globally, but acts locally in every corner of the world. We maintain close ties with the countries in the Balkans, the Middle East and North Africa, Southern Caucasus, Central and South Africa, Asia. Beyond these neighboring regions, we expand the horizons of Turkish foreign policy, reaching out to further geographies. With 263 diplomatic and consular missions, we are the third largest diplomatic network globally. Dear friends, when it comes to distinguishing right from the wrong, Palestine, as you know, is unfortunately, or has become the litmus test. As we speak, Israel's genocidal campaign in Gaza continues unabated. The UN has now declared famine in Gaza, and this is not a natural disaster. It is caused by a deliberate policy that weaponizes starvation. Let us digest that for a second. 500,000 people face catastrophic hunger. Israel's deliberate obstruction of aid resulted in this man-made famine. Gaza used to be referred to as the world's largest open-air prison. It has now become the world's largest open-air graveyard. Is this compatible with the values of civilized nations in the 21st century? Is never again only valid for a certain group of people? The simple answer is no. But for a long time, it seemed so. Mentioning the very notion of a ceasefire was considered a taboo. Yet there is a glimmer of hope. Public opinion in Western society is shifting. The tide is turning up against Israel's policies of occupation and oppression. Yesterday in Jeddah, I had the honor of chairing the extraordinary meeting of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. There we discussed ways and means of consolidating our united response. We also addressed the need to mobilize the international community for urgent action. Moving forward, sustaining and expanding the momentum for Palestine's recognition is key. Strong, coordinated pressure is needed to compel Israel toward a permanent solution. In this regard, I am glad to see Ireland on the right side of the history. By recognizing the state of Palestine, Ireland has become the voice of conscience in Europe. We welcome that decision and will continue to work with our Irish friends to keep hope of freedom alive for Palestinian people. The same spirit guides our bilateral ties. History reminds us that when nations stand together in hard times, bonds are forged that endure. In the mid-19th century, when Ireland suffered in the Great Famine, Sultan Abdul Majid sent ships of aid across the seas. That act of solidarity left a mark that time could not erase. Decades later, in our struggle for independence, our peoples once again found common cause. Turkey and Ireland may stand at opposite ends of Europe geographically, yet we are united in friendship. As we approach 75 years of diplomatic relations, we have the chance not only to honor the past, but also to shape a stronger future together. Today, I engage in fruitful discussions with my Irish colleagues. What is evident from our talks is the vast potential of our cooperation. From politics to trade, from culture to education, our partnership has every opportunity to grow stronger. Looking ahead, Ireland will take on the presidency of the European Union in the second half of 2026. Enlargement will also be on the agenda, and for Turkey, that is certainly welcome. In fact, what we seek is simple: a new beginning in Turkey-EU relations. Our dialogue has too often stalled. We now need a common vision that looks forward, a vision that is shaped by the opportunities of the future, not by ghosts of the past. A vision that can redefine the strategic horizon of EU-Turkey relations. Ireland can help lead that renewal. Not least because we are on the threshold of a new world. The global system is increasingly multipolar. It is also more unpredictable and unstable. I just mentioned that a just, lasting, and inclusive architecture of global governance is essential. This transformation must begin in our own house, in Europe. Europe stands at a crossroads. Here, the opportunities for EU-Turkey cooperation are immense. Defense industry partnership, energy resources and supply, transport corridors and connectivity, digital markets, and critical minerals. This is a decisive moment for European security as well. The European Union's efforts to strengthen its own defense industry is understandable. but this cannot exclude or substitute NATO's central role. And these efforts will only be effective if Turkey is part of them, because we are not on the margins of Europe's security. We are at its heart. We carry responsibilities that protect the whole continent, from the Black Sea to the Mediterranean, from counterterrorism to defense industry cooperation. Including Turkey in Europe's future defense vision is not a favor to us. It is a necessity for Europe's instability, its credibility, and its strength in turbulent world. Dear friends, Europe's security doesn't end at its borders. Turkey's role as the backbone of NATO's European pillar is matched by its role in the region as a provider of security and stability. And nowhere this is more evident than in Syria. After 14 years of civil war, a new page has opened. What we want is simple: a Syria that is whole, sovereign, and a good neighbor to all. However, to achieve this, it will take lifting all sanctions that punish ordinary people, rebuilding shattered cities, and helping millions of Syrians return home with dignity and hope. A stable and united Syria is not only vital for the Middle East, it is essential for Europe's own security and peace. This is why we continue to support an inclusive political transition, push for the removal of all terrorist groups. Distinguished guests, peace building is not an abstract concept for Turkey. It is a responsibility we carry every day in our region and beyond. This is why we invest in mediation and facilitation across the world, from the Balkans to the Black Sea, and from the Horn of Africa to the Middle East. Behind all these efforts, there is a simple yet powerful idea: regional problems require regional ownership. Only then sustainable solutions can be forged. This is the commitment that also guides our approach to Ukraine. For Turkey, the path to ending the war between Ukraine and Russia has always been clear, which is through diplomacy. Istanbul talks is a living proof of this vision. Resuming direct negotiations between the parties for the first time in 3 years was in itself a significant achievement. Moreover, 3 rounds of talks produced tangible progress on humanitarian issues, including prisoner exchanges, opening a direct channel to shape a framework for a ceasefire and peace. Moving forward, Turkey remains committed to facilitating a diplomatic solution. We are ready to support the implementation of a settlement that reflects the consent of both sides. Dear friends, looking ahead, the roadmap for Turkey-EU relations is critical. The ideal scenario is, as you can imagine, deeper integration, a genuine alignment between Turkey and the European Union. But even if full integration remains out of reach in short term, working together as close allies serves the interests of us all. I have often said the EU has succeeded in building a remarkable supranational order in the economic sphere, but it has not yet succeeded in becoming truly cross-civilizational. This requires opening up to countries with different cultural and civilizational backgrounds. This is truly not the case right now. At the same time, the EU still struggles to act in unison in foreign and security policy. Europe speaks with one voice on trade, but too often with many voices on security and defense. The gap between economic unity and strategic standing is one of the central challenges before us. Turkey's inclusion can help close that gap. With our strategic reach, our defense capabilities, and our diplomatic network, we can upgrade the European Union to another level as a global player. In other words, Turkey can help Europe match its economic weight with strategic strength. Dear friends, let me put it plainly. Had Turkey been in the European Union, it is highly unlikely that Brexit would have happened. Turkey's president would have given the Union the balance and breadth to keep the UK at the table. Furthermore, Europe would have been more resilient in the face of every major challenge, including the ones that we are facing today. From conflicts to financial shocks, from migration flows to terrorism, from energy crisis to pandemics. Furthermore, we bring to the table connectivity that links continents and energy pipelines, technology that drives innovation, human mobility that bridges cultures. These are unique assets Europe needs in order to turn its potential into a truly global power. Despite all this, Turkey's aspiration for deeper integration with the European Union has not been matched by the same level of enthusiasm in Europe. In light of this reality, it is only natural for Turkey to broaden its outlook. This includes assessing other economic cooperation platforms and opportunities. Dear friends, international politics is a complex, sometimes perilous craft. Conflicts erupt without warning, pandemics reshape societies, and the fog of geopolitics clouds even the most seasoned judgments. At a time when uncertainty grows on every side, as Europe, we must do something with certainty. We must find common solutions to our common challenges. This can only happen if we have the vision to seek them and the courage to seize them. Together, we can build a Europe and a world that is more secure and more prosperous. That is our common future, and it is within our grasp. I believe that our best days are not behind us, but before us. Thank you.
This podcast is brought to you by the IIEA, sharing ideas, shaping policy.